Muslim apologists often insist that the Quran is flawless, no contradictions, no inconsistencies, no historical errors. But the truth is, there's a bunch of historical skeletons in the Quran's closet. For starters, Surah 1220 claims that Joseph's brothers sold him for a few dirhams. Problem: dirhams didn't exist in Joseph's time. This coin, a derivative of the Greek drachma, wouldn't show up until the 12th century BC, a good 7 centuries after Joseph. Some Muslim apologists argue that dirham just means a weight, not a coin, but let's be real, the verse clearly suggests currency, and we got nada about dirhams being coins used in ancient Egypt. Now compare that to the New Testament, which doesn't slip up on these details. It accurately names coins like drachma, stater, and denarius, even getting their values right. So while the Quran's handling of ancient currency leaves us scratching our heads, the New Testament shows that it knows its ancient coins like a numismatist. Next up, Surah 34, 10-11 tells us that David crafted chainmail with a little divine assistance. The problem: chainmail wasn't invented until the 5th century BC by the Celts, a solid 5 centuries after David's time. Some Muslim apologists say that chainmail here might just refer to any old iron-linked armor, but the verse specifies perfectly balanced links, which lines up with the chainmail technology that came much later. Now, let's stack this against the Bible, which doesn't stumble on the timeline. Take the Teledan Stele, a 9th century BC inscription discovered in northern Israel. It mentions the House of David, providing the earliest extra-biblical evidence of David's dynasty and confirming his historical impact soon after his lifetime. While the Bible's record of David lines up with real-world findings, the Quran's take on David's armor seems to jump the gun historically. But it gets worse. Surah 20:35-88 in verse 95 has a Samaritan leading Israel astray after Exodus. But the Samaritans didn't exist until the 8th century BC, long after Moses' time. Some Muslims try to sidestep this by saying Samari is just a personal name, but that doesn't work. Historically, the term is tied to the Samaritans. Compare that to the Bible, which gets the timing and tensions right. Luke 9:51 talks about how Samaritans rejected Jesus on his way from Galilee to Jerusalem, a real-life friction that actually fits the era. Josephus even describes Samaritans attacking Jewish pilgrims from Galilee on their way through Samaria. So while the Quran misses by centuries, the Bible nails the context, showing historical accuracy instead of an awkward timeline slip-up. Here's another awkward one. Surahs 1241 and 2071 mention crucifixion in Egypt during Joseph's and Moses' time. The problem: crucifixion didn't exist until the Persians introduced it in the 6th century BC, centuries after Moses and Joseph. Some Muslim apologists argue this could mean impalement or affixing to poles, but that's not a method of execution known at that time either. Contrast this with the Bible. The Gospel's crucifixion narrative even nails the small details. In John 19:12, the Jewish crowd taunts Pilate, "If you release this man, you're not Caesar's friend." This struck a nerve because, as Philo notes, Pilate had already angered Tiberius Caesar by setting up golden shields in Jerusalem, earning a sharp rebuke. The crowd's taunt pressured Pilate to comply, fearing further backlash from Rome. While the Quran's timeline slips up, the Bible stays on point with history. Another big blunder is in Surah 9:30, where the Quran claims that Jews call Ezra, or Uzair, the Son of God, like Christians do with Jesus. But Judaism's strict monotheism never saw Ezra that way. There's zero historical evidence. Some apologists speculate that Uzair might refer to a different figure or a fringe belief in 7th century Arabia, but that's pure guesswork. Contrast this to John 4:22, where Jesus tells the Samaritan woman, "You worship what you do not know." Sounds harsh and maybe even a bit racist, but he's pointing to a real historical issue. According to Josephus, Antiquities 12:51, the Samaritans once renamed their temple on Mount Gerizim after Zeus to avoid conflict with Antiochus, blending pagan elements into their worship. Unlike the Quran's claim about Jewish beliefs, this is a concrete reference to an actual spiritual compromise. Are you bad with names? Well, the Quran is too. Surah 19:28 calls Mary, mother of Jesus, the sister of Aaron, while Surah 66:12 names her after her father Amram, confusing her with Miriam, Moses' sister. Apologists argue that sister could mean descendant, but culturally, sister implies the same era. Then we have Haman in Egypt, a Persian official from Esther's time placed in Pharaoh's court with Moses, which is way off timing and geography-wise. And then in Surah 19:7, the Quran claims that no one had the name John before John the Baptist, yet the Old Testament lists a bunch of Johns. Apologists say first just means unique, but early scholars like Ibn Abbas took it literally. John was supposedly the very first one with that name. Contrast this with the Bible, which nails the historical context. Scholar Luke Vandewey argues that the Gospel's naming patterns reveal real historical roots. Using lots of data from Jewish names from 1st century Palestine, he shows that the most common names in the Gospels, like Simon, John, Joseph, and Mary, line up with the top names at the time. Jewish names in other regions, like Egypt, often greatly differed. This points to people who were plugged into that culture, not later forgers making things up. And for more on this naming argument, Inspiring Philosophy has a terrific video, which I'll link in a pinned comment. Be sure to check it out. All of this is just the tip of the iceberg. The Quran's historical blunders make it very difficult to call it flawless. Meanwhile, the Bible's details consistently hold up under scrutiny.